watch what she's doing. Look, she says, the Lord lives and as your soul lives, since the Lord has restrained you from shedding blood and from avenging yourself by your own hand, now then, let your enemies and those who seek evil against my Lord be as Nabal. Now let this gift which your maidservant has brought to my Lord be given to the young men who accompany my Lord. She uses a brilliant strategy here, a brilliant technique. What she does, this is what's amazing, is she views David, and she changes the story in her own head, but she views David not as the enemy and not as the evil man, not as the one who's wrong, even though David in this instance is wrong. She views David as a man after God's own heart, one who's got a righteous heart, who is going to make the right decision. He hasn't made the decision yet. She hasn't stopped anything yet. And she says, hey, the Lord stopped you from shedding blood. I know you're a good man. I know you know that this is a mistake and God's stopping you, all this kind of stuff. She's projecting on him the goodness in him, calling out the goodness, not the evil, not what he's going to do is wrong, not his anger. She's not highlighting all of that stuff. She's highlighting this heart is good. He's a good man. He's after God's own heart. And she highlights all this. And she uses a technique, which brilliantly, she uses a technique that is called contrasting. And psychologists talk about this and they teach in proper communication to use the art of contrasting. The art of contrasting is the moment that you feel, the moment the other person feels unsafe, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to fight or flight. They're going to either attack or they're going to get defensive and run. And you can tell when somebody feels unsafe because they get really defensive and they attack, or they get really defensive and they run. And then you know if they're running from the conversation, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to, or you're always doing it, and they start attacking you. That's an indication that they feel unsafe. So what Abigail does is she uses the art of contrasting, and the art of contrasting is, I'm not saying, David, you're wrong. I'm not saying that you're an evil man. I'm saying that you're a man after God's own heart. You're a righteous man, and you're not wrong in all this. And you're on God's side, and by using this art of contrasting, David's feeling even more safe. And she's subtly poking at the very things that David has written in the Psalms, written about who God is, written that God is on my side and my enemies will flee, all these kind of stuff. And she's kind of using his words, not fair, using his words against him. And using contrasting. Then she goes on, she says, please forgive the transgressions of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord. Is he? He's got his sword on. He's got his armor on. He's about to wipe out her family. And she's like, I know, because my Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord. And evil will not be found in you all your days. She's calling out his goodness. Do you see this? It's remarkable. I mean, I read this and I was like, this woman is unbelievable. Because isn't it just human nature for all of us to assume the worst in people, not assume the best? Like, it's not natural for any of us to assume the best in anyone, is it? Automatically, like, we like to assume the worst in somebody. Well, they're at it again, and they mean this, and they're trying to take me out, and they're just like this person. They just do this one. They're just like that. And we assume the worst, and because we assume the worst, we attack based on our assumptions. And then she starts this conversation. She starts this verse by saying, please forgive the transgressions of your maidservant. Again, she's like, Nabal's the problem, but please forgive me. Which is amazing. She has nothing to apologize for. She hasn't done anything wrong, and yet she's asking for forgiveness. Isn't that amazing? Like, so point number 6 is, when appropriate, ask for forgiveness. And it's okay to say, I was wrong. And according to this, even when you're not in the wrong, it's okay to say. Isn't that something? And she continues on and she says this, should anyone rise up to pursue you and seek your life, then the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living with the Lord your God, and the lives of your enemies he will sling out as from the hollow of a sling. What she's done here in the last couple of verses is she changed the story in her own head. She had every right to say, David is a hothead, David is the enemy, David is wrong, David is an evil man, like he's overreacting. She had every reason to assume the worst in David, and should have. And yet, what she says here, she assumes the best in him, and she changes the story.